Hello everyone and welcome to our Contemporary World Civilizations course. I'm your instructor Aysun Güneş and today I'll be explaining you the 7th unit about Turkish civilization. After completing this chapter, you'll be able to articulate the origin of the Turkish civilization and recognize the major events of the Turkish civilization, identify the Turkish culture and traditions to evaluate their impact on the creation of various states and empires, and lastly, you'll be able to describe the social, economic, and military relationships within the Turkish civilizing society. So let's start by defining some words about this civilization, and the first word is Turk. Turk refers to a people that originated in the harsh North Central Asian steppes and moved mainly to the south and west for various reasons over the centuries. Like other nomads, Turks were comprised of various tribes with similar customs, traditions, and beliefs. Turkish refers to the language that the Turk speaks, especially in Turkey and other lands that were ruled by the Ottoman Empire. And lastly, Turkic is a generally used word to characterize the 5 Central Asian countries that were formed following the collapse of the Soviet Union, namely Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Azerbaijan. As for the origin of the Turkish civilization, in case of Turks, this settled culture was Chinese. Historians believe that the Xiongnu, identified by the Chinese in the 3rd century BCE, is the precursor of the Turks. The Xiongnu, Hongnu in Old Chinese, Zwing in Sogdian, and probably Old Turkic Hun, also known as the Asiatic Huns, were one of the nomadic peoples of ancient Central Asia. And the leader of the Xiongnu was called Tengri in Chinese transcription, and Kutu, Holy Shenyu Emperor. 2 kings of East and West served under the emperor and were called Tuqi, which is related to Dogri, means straight and faithful to the Shenyu. In Turkish, we call this Doğru. Let's talk about Huns. The northern Yingyu tribes would later be called the Huns. Around 425 CE, Huns were ruled by the 3 brothers, Ruaz, Munzuk, and Oktar. Munzuk's sons Bleda and Attila assumed power around 434. By 441, Attila had gotten rid of his brother and he declared war on the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantines. Then Attila turned his attention to the west. He allied with some Germanic peoples and attacked the Roman Gaul in June of 451. The Romans were able to convince the Visigoths to fight on their side, and Attila lost, but not without fighting very hard. Next year, his army regrouped and he conquered northern Italy and started going to south for ultimate target, Rome. The fall of the Western Roman Empire was imminent. For some reason still puzzling to historians, Attila decided not to sack Rome at the request of the Bishop of Rome, Saint Leo the Great. After Attila's death, the Huns were defeated by the Ostrogoths and the Gepidae. Under the leadership of Attila's son Dengizic, the Huns had to withdraw to the northeast of the Black Sea. So the European Huns regrouped one last time. They crossed the Danube River and attacked the Eastern Roman Empire, only to be defeated decisively. As a result, the Huns left Europe for long. And when we need to talk about the major events in Turkish civilization and timeline, we can say that in recorded history, Turks started as nomads in North Central Asia in the last millennium before the Common Era. Turks were introduced to Islam around the 8th century and became Muslims at an increasing rate by the 11th century. And the 20th century has seen the creation of the Republic of Turkey. Azerbaijan and the Central Asian countries of Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. These countries claim the rich cultural heritage that we call Turkish civilization, but they will also contribute to it in the upcoming centuries. When we look at the periods of Turkish history, can you see that the flags of 16 historical Turkish states? You see them? Here the Turkish one, the Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. Following the footsteps of Xiongnu Empire and the successness of Huns in Europe, Kök Turks established a strong state after crushing the Tiles and destroying the Avar Empire in 552 CE. It took the Turks 5 decades to struggle to revive the Eastern Köktürk Empire under Ilteriş Kutluk Khan with his chief advisor Tonyukuk in 682. Eastern Köktürk Empire lasted until 744 when it collapsed due to infighting by emergence of another Turkic empires, the Uyghurs. Uyghurs established a large empire centered in Xinjiang and Mongolia and extending into Siberia, China, and Transsaxonia. The Uyghur Empire lasted almost a century and ended after long wars with the Tibetans and the Kyrgyz. Saltuk Burhan was also the first Turkic leader to convert to Islam, and a majority of the population in his realm followed his decision. This led to the first Muslim Turkic Empire. A second Muslim Turkic Empire was started around the same time by Alptigin in Ghazni. With the fall of the Anatolian Seljuk Sultanate and loose Mongolian control, various Turk statelets were formed across Anatolia. With the fall of the Anatolian Seljuk Sultanate and loose Mongolian control, various Turk statelets were formed across Anatolia. One such statelet was headed by Osman Bey at the northwest side of Anatolia. Can you see that? Northwest side of Anatolia here, and bordering the remaining Byzantine lands surrounding its capital, Constantinople. We call this, Istanbul. Osman Bey and later his son Orhan Bey took advantage of the weak position of the Byzantine state and enlarged their statelet by conquering almost all Byzantine land other than Constantinople itself. One by one, all the statelets in Anatolia fell to the Ottomans and pledged loyalty. In the Balkans, many peoples, such as the Bulgarians, the Greeks, the Albanians, the Macedonians, and the Romanians, all became Ottoman subjects. And as you know, we had a transition from the Ottoman Empire to the Turkish Republic. And starting with the late 18th century, the Ottomans had an increasingly harder time keeping up with the industrial and military progress in Europe, with the reforms, as you know. And because of the moves of the European powers and the nationalistic aspirations of peoples under Ottoman rule, the empire gradually lost almost all the lands it held in Europe and Africa. World War I, between 1914 and 1918, resulted in losing control of the Middle East. The invasion of Anatolia and the occupation of Istanbul by the Allied powers and later Greece followed. The Turks united under the leadership of great Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, and they won the War of Independence between 1919 and 1922, establishing the Republic of Turkey on October 29, 1923. And let's talk about Mustafa Kemal Atatürk and his reforms. Atatürk instituted reforms to modernize Turkey. He had abolished the office of Sultan in 1922 and did away with the Caliphate and the post of Sheikhul Islam and Islamic religious courts in 1924. That same year, the unification of education law passed and the Turkish constitution was ratified. And 2 years later, in 1926, more civil and commercial changes were made in accord with the popular Western ideas. To that end, the Swiss Civil Code and Italian Penal Code were adopted. That gave women some rights. And in Turkey, women got the right to vote in 1930. In 1928, the script was changed from the Arabic alphabet to a modified version of Latin, taking out some letters such as Q, X, and W, and adding Ç, G, Ü, Ö, Ş, and Ü. Then in 1928, the constitution was changed and the designation of Islam as the official religion of the Republic was partially taken out. And Mustafa Kemal, who received the last name Atatürk in 1934, passed away on November 10th, 1938. The culture of Turkish civilization, we can say that Turks over the centuries, Ottomans in particular, absorbed many of the traditions and institutions of cultures in the regions they conquered. I mean, when they conquered Africa, they got their traditions and institutions, and they also modified them by adding new dimensions. Numerous cultural traditions, including literature, architecture, cuisine, music, other arts, leisure, and government, were adapted by the Ottoman Turks, who molded them into new forms, coming up with a distinctively Ottoman culture identity. And throughout the years of the past century, while forming a stable government and a military, the new Republic of Turkey has picked up and modernized its own unique Eurasian culture. Turkish culture and its magnificent examples can be found in agriculture, art, literature, and in the entertainment style of the citizens. So when we need to talk about the society of the Turkish civilization, from pastoral nomads in the steppes of Upper Central Asia to city dwellers of today, the society of the Turks has transformed immensely. Starting with Turco-Mongol roots in the tough terrains touching the Siberian forests, picking up assorted traditions of settled peoples such as the Chinese and the Arabo-Persians, and finally adding some finishing touches from Western Europe or Russia, each Turkic society has gone through its own processes of Islamization, adapting to settled life and modernization. The Turkish military and religion have great importance in the lives of Turkish people. As it comes to science, Republican Turkey has produced many brilliant scientists, including the 2015 Nobel Chemistry Prize winner Aziz Sancar. TÜBİTAK is the leading government agency for science and technology in modern Turkey. Before we finish, it will be unfair to talk about the Turkish cuisine, which has a mouth-watering scale of foods. Thank you for listening.